Yeah, you action figure enthusiasts out there, and hopefully today also you video game enthusiasts out there. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm not actually going to be reviewing an action figure, though I do have one piece of action figure news, which is also video game related. But the main point of this video is I just picked up the brand new Marvel Superheroes arcade machine from Arcade1up. It just started hitting shelves, and we're going to take a closer look at that. But before we get to that, again, I did have one piece of interesting news for you Marvel Legend collectors out there. News came late yesterday from Hasbro that they're going to be doing a new 6-inch Marvel Legends Iron Man figure, which is going to be based on the upcoming Avengers video game from Square Enix. So this is a console video game. You've probably seen the trailers for it, and you know, there's some gameplay trailers and stuff that was put out during San Diego and E3 and such. And so it's going to feature most of the main Avengers, pretty much all the Avengers from the MCU except for Hawkeye. I mean, this isn't an MCU based game, it's its own thing, but pretty much all the Avengers from the Avengers movie are in it, except Hawkeye is the only one we haven't actually seen. I don't know if he'll actually be in it or not, but he definitely hasn't been in the trailers and stuff that they've been showing. Now, the figure they're doing is Iron Man again, and it is based on the armor that he wears in that video game, which seems to be pretty cool and all. I don't know if they're going to do other figures. I don't know. I could see them maybe doing Cap down the road. You know, they did the PS4 Spider-Man, and now we're getting a few other Spider-Man figures in the next wave based on the PS4 video game. So, you know, we might see the same thing. Now, this is basically a one-off figure. It's part of their Gamerverse line. It is not a store exclusive. It should be available everywhere that carries Marvel Legends, or you know, at least online, and I'm sure like GameStop will carry it and such like that. It has not gone up for pre-order yet. I don't know when it will go up for pre-order, but it's slated for a spring 2020 release, which basically means you know, early to mid next year. And you know, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you seen the trailer to the video game? Are you excited for it? It seemed like initially when the first trailer came out, reactions were kind of mixed. So, you know, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and are you interested in getting, you know, essentially Marvel Legend figures based on that video game? Let me know in the comment section below. Oh, and you know what? While we're on the subject of video games and action figures, I actually have one other piece of information I wanted to share with you, and this one is from Tomasi Nations. So last week they revealed they're doing another SH Figuarts Spider-Man figure for the PS4 Spider-Man video game. This one specifically is the Anti-Ock suit, the black armored suit with the yellow on the spider symbol and eyes and such. Definitely looks pretty cool. It's going to come with multiple pairs of hands and webbing effects, and it's going to be released in March 2020. All right, so now that we've got the news out of the way, let's take a closer look at this bad boy behind me. Okay, so here's a look at the packaging for the new machine. So this, if you're not familiar with these Arcade1up machines, they are essentially, they're made to look like actual arcade cabinets. They're not quite the same size as an actual arcade cabinet that you would see in an actual arcade. They are a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter. And in fact, you actually have to buy what's called a riser to put underneath it. If like you're a full grown adult and you want to be able to stand and play it, you really need the riser. Otherwise, it's too short. If you have just the machine, which is what you see here, then you probably would need to have a stool or something so you could sit down and play it. And if you're a kid, then it's probably a good size for, you know, a shorter kid. But definitely if you're a full-fledged adult, you'll want to get the riser. Now, you can get the machine with a special Marvel-based riser with it. It does cost more. This machine costs about just without the riser is about $300. And then if you get the Marvel machine with the Marvel riser, it costs about $380. And then with tax and everything, it comes up to about $400. I ended up getting just the machine without the riser, and then bought a generic 1-up riser. They sell the riser separately. It's just black. It has the 1-up logo on it, and that's a little bit cheaper. And so that's the route I actually went. It wasn't a big deal if I had decals on the bottom riser or not. But as it is, you know, we're going to open this up, take a look. Now you can see with the packaging, it shows you the machine and then tells you the games are included. And with this particular Marvel machine, it includes the original Marvel Superheroes game from Capcom, and then the X-Men Children of the Atom video game, which was essentially the same as Marvel Superheroes, a Street Fighter type game, only with just X-Men characters. You know, when that game came out, X-Men were super popular, so they started with the X-Men and then moved into all the other Marvel superheroes. And then finally the Punisher, which is actually a side-scroller game similar to something like Final Fight, I would say. And you play the Punisher. If there's 2 players, you get to play Nick Fury. That game was not nearly as distributed in arcades as the other 2. In fact, I only remember seeing it one time in one arcade when I was a kid. So definitely was not out there in as many arcades as the Marvel superheroes and X-Men Children of the Atom, which actually I think makes it kind of cool that they included it here. Now, I would have loved to seen like the side-scroller X-Men game and the side-scroller Avengers game with this, and what was hopeful when they first announced the Marvel game, that's what was going to be included. Still hopeful one day they might do that, but as it is, you get the 2 Capcom games. Actually, I think the Punisher is from Capcom too, but the 2 fighting games and then the side-scroller game. Now, the packaging, you know, it shows the machine on the front. You've got the Arcade1up logo. I do feel like this image is a little misleading. I feel like that's the machine with the riser, because I don't feel like it would be that tall without the riser underneath it. And the riser, again, is not included with this particular version. So I do feel like that's a little misleading, but you know, nevertheless, you know, you should read what's actually included, and it does tell you what's included in the packaging and everything. And then just a look on the side here, same kind of stuff. And then on the back, put this down. And, you know, the box, it comes up to about my chest, and, you know, it's not light, but it's not so heavy that I can't pick it up and carry it. So, you know, if you see it in the store, I got this from Walmart. I think Walmart's the only place that has gotten this game in yet. It's brand new. The other 2 they just released were the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Star Wars game. And I was tempted to get the Turtle one, but I just don't have the space, and I definitely wanted to get this one for the office. So let's open it up. There is going to be some assembly required. Okay, so here's a look at everything that was inside the box. So you get 3 additional smaller boxes, and then you get the side panels for the cabinet itself. And of course, you also get an instruction manual on how to assemble the cabinet, and then you get owner's manuals in multiple languages about the games and such. Okay, so here's a look at all the pieces completely out of all the packaging, and you can see there's quite a bit of assembly required here. But it seems like everything is well labeled with lettering and everything. And it's kind of like getting a piece of furniture from IKEA. That's how it strikes me as. So I feel like, you know, anybody, as long as you read the instructions, should be able to put this together without too much difficulty. And I'll let you know how long it actually takes me to put this thing together. I'm not going to do it on camera because it's probably longer than what you're going to want to sit through. But again, I'll give you an idea of how long it actually took me to put all this together and such. Now, one thing I want to note is you will need a Phillips head screwdriver when you put this together, and it actually says an actual screwdriver. Don't use like a drill or a drill screwdriver type thing. I guess they don't want you to strip the screws or what have you. Okay, so here's the cabinet fully assembled. It took me about 40 minutes to put this together. It was definitely self-explanatory. It wasn't too difficult. The only minor issue I had was a minor, I guess, quality control issue. 2 of the holes up here on this piece up here were not, I guess, drilled correctly, so they didn't line up. Unfortunately, it wasn't that critical because there was still enough there to secure this piece of wood without these. So, but it did hold me up a little bit as I was trying to figure out, make sure I hadn't done something wrong, put something together wrong or what have you. But otherwise, you know, it was very easy to put together. Like I said before, it's kind of like putting together a piece of IKEA furniture. So you can see that this thing, you know, without the riser is, you know, comes up to about my head, and I'm sitting down right now. So this thing actually, it measures, got a tape measure here. So this thing measures right about 46 inches tall. So, and then the width of it, or the dimension, it goes back about just over 22 inches at its widest point. And then this way it measures right about 19 inches. So, you know, it's a good size. And then you can get, like I said before, you can get these risers, and this will make it a good height so that you can stand and play it. Okay, now I've gone on and sat it in the riser. There's screws that you can actually secure the riser to the machine if you want to, but you don't really need to. I would recommend probably just leaving it, just sitting it in there, and it stays in there, nice and secure. You don't have to worry about it falling out. And, again, once basically you put the riser in, then the control deck here comes up to about my waist. And, it's definitely a good size to play, standing up for a full-grown adult. Now, let's take a closer, before I get it plugged in and everything, let's take a close look at the cabinet itself. So up here, you've got the Marvel Superheroes logo with all the Marvel superheroes. This marquee does not light up. Now, they do have an actual limited edition version that has like yellow striping here and has an actual light up marquee. It's more expensive. It cost about, the total cost of that one without taxes is like $400. And, again, the marquee actually lights up. The trim here is yellow as opposed to blue. And I think the controls might be a little better quality, though I'm not 100%. These are nice controls, which I'll show you in a minute. But I've been told the special edition version, which is sold only on the 1UP website, and supposedly like limited to 8,000, I don't know, something to tie in with Marvel Comics 80th anniversary. So, but I believe they are still available. They've been taking pre-orders for those for a couple months now. So on the front here, you've got the screen, nice size screen, and then you've got like the comic book art up here around the sides. And again, it says Marvel Superheroes in there. You've got the Arcade1up logo and the Marvel Comics logo. Overall, this thing was packed very well, no damage. Even as I bought mine at Walmart and they were bringing it out from the back. They hadn't put them out on the actual shelves yet, so they had to go back and get it. The lady had a cart, and she had this and 2 TVs on it. And as she was coming around the corner, she hit one of the shelves or something and knocked my machine off. The box fell off the cart. I kind of grimaced, but then I figured, if they hadn't packed these well enough to substantiate something like that, this thing probably would never make it in one piece to the actual store. So I wasn't too worried, and again, everything's completely fine. The sides of the cabinet, the artwork are really nice. You've got Thanos there with the Infinity Gauntlet. Long before the MCU came along, this game was hyping Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet from the Infinity War comics. You got Dr. Doom and Magneto standing behind him. So pretty cool. And on the front there, you've just got the logos for the 3 games as well as Marvel and Capcom. Again, I've just got the generic riser, but they do have an actual special Marvel one that matches. And on this side, again, same thing, same artwork. Nicely detailed. And then the back, you've just got the power cord that just plugs in here, and then you plug it in. It's just a regular, power cord, a 3-prong power cord. Got little air vents here. Not sure what that's supposed to be for. Fortunately, you can't really set anything on top of your machine because the back slants too much. So you could maybe hang some action figures or something if you wanted to on there, but you can't really set action figures. Probably you would knock them over anyway just when you start playing it. Not that it shakes that much, but probably enough that it would knock action figures over. And then you've got the deck here, which again, you've got some pretty cool comic book art. Wolverine facing off against Thanos there. The superheroes. And then you've got your 6 buttons and your joystick. You got the directions. It makes a clicky noise. The joysticks, I've been playing the game a few times, and joysticks seem sturdy. Buttons seem nice. I'm not an arcade expert, so, there may be some kind of nicer quality buttons out there or something, but these seem to do the job pretty good. And, I'm not worried about, breaking them or anything. Okay, so let me move this over near where the power outlet is and get it plugged in, and I'll show you the games themselves. Okay, so now I've moved it over to the corner in my office. This is where I'm going to actually keep the machine, and it's near my desk so that, I can basically, if I'm feeling stressed during the day or just want to get up and stretch or what have you, I can walk over here, basically play a game of X-Men Children of the Atom or Marvel superheroes, relieve some stress, beat some people up, and then go back to work, 15 minutes later. One of the things I like about these kinds of Street Fighter type games is they're not ones that you necessarily have to invest tons of time in. You can just play a few rounds and then go about your day. Now, the Punisher game is a little more involved. If you start playing that one, you might basically end up playing it for a longer period of time. It's a side scroller, and we'll take a look at all of them in just a minute. But let me walk over here. So right now it's powered off, but I have plugged it in. Again, all you do is you just plug it into a regular, power outlet or a surge protector. And then you basically, to turn it on, you just hit this on-off button to the on position. And let me turn my light off so you can get a better look at the screen. You can see it's loading. You get the Arcade1up logo. It takes about a minute to load up when you first power it on, and then you get the Marvel and Capcom logos. And then from there, it takes you to a screen where you can toggle between the 3 games and choose whichever one you want to play. And to move, which one you want to play, you just use the joystick and you scroll left or right. And then when you want to pick the one, you just hit like the blue button, the punch button, and select the game you want to play. So we'll go on and start off with Marvel Superheroes. And then from there, it gives you a screen that shows you how all the controls and everything work. And then from there, what you want to do is just hit the player 1 button. And it's going to take you to the animated sequence screen like you would always see when you walked into the arcade before you put your quarters in, giving you stats and like a demo showing you how the game works and everything. Now, if you're going to leave your machine on all the time or a lot of the time, you want to make sure that you select a game and go into one of these animated sequence screens. If you're on just that first screen where you pick the game, there's no animation with that. And if you left it on all the time with that, it could end up damaging your screen. So definitely I would recommend, if you want to leave your arcade machine on, that you actually go into one of the games so that you get this animation sequence. And it just cycles through over and over and over again. So, it's like kind of like a screensaver. Oh, and I should also note that you can control the volume of the game. Right now I have it muted, so to mute it you just turn the volume all the way down, but if you want to turn the volume up, you just hit that button and you get arcade sounds. I wouldn't recommend leaving the volume up all the time. If you're going to leave your machine on, it would get a little annoying, but that's up to you. Okay, so let's go on and actually play a game here. We'll start off with Marvel Superheroes, but let's go on to start the game. You just want to hit, from here, you just want to hit player 1, and then it's going to take you to that animated sequence. From there, you hit the player 1 again, and then you get the selector player. So you've got your favorites like Hulk, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Magneto, Juggernaut, Iron Man, Psylocke, Captain America, and I'm always Captain America, so that's who I'm going to pick. And then it asks you if you want to play normal or turbo, and I'll go with turbo for the purposes of this demonstration. And it looks like we're going to be playing against Blackheart. Now the gameplay and the graphics and the sound are all just as I remember it. So very accurate. And I think this game, even by today's standards, is pretty fun. And it got me kind of thinking, back then, Marvel was known for its cartoons and video games, and DC had the movies, but DC really didn't have much in the way of actual video games that I remember. Eventually they came out with some console stuff, Mortal Kombat versus DC and stuff, but that was much later. And these games, I think they really got people into reading the comics. I remember, and it was like you would only recognize a lot of the characters if you actually read the comics, a lot of the bad guys. Especially like with the Punisher game, which I'll show you in a bit, but like characters like Bushwhacker, I had forgotten was actually in that game, and the Reavers and stuff, so pretty cool. Like Blackheart here, you probably wouldn't know is related to Mephisto, the devil, if you didn't read the comics. So again, gameplay and everything is very much how I remember the original arcade. Definitely, you know, I think this is true to form to what you got back in the day. Now, to get out of a game, what you want to do is you just hold the player 1 button down for 5 seconds. And it takes you out of the game back to the toggle screen to select your games. Now, if you just want to reset the game, you don't want to actually leave the game, then you hold the player 2 button down for 5 seconds. So now we'll go to X-Men Children of the Atom, which is, you know, a very similar game to Marvel Superheroes, only you only have X-Men type characters to choose from. So we'll hit the player 1 or the blue button and then the player 1 button to select the game. And then it's going to take us to an animated sequence screen. And your 90s X-Men characters are featured into this game. Iceman, Cyclops, Jim Lee Cyclops, Jim Lee Storm, Psylocke. So we'll go on and select the game. Once again, just like with Marvel Superheroes, it takes you to a screen to select your players. So I usually go with either Cyclops or Wolverine. We'll go with Wolverine today, and it looks like I'm going to face off against Omega Red. And again, manual or automatic. I'll go with automatic.
Round 1.
I always thought the backdrops in these Marvel games were better than the ones like in Street Fighter and stuff. Now, honestly, the games themselves, I mean, I wouldn't recommend this cabinet for the games themselves because there are cheaper ways to get these games these days. You know, you don't have to pay $300 to get an authentic version of Marvel Superheroes or even X-Men Children of the Atom. In fact, I have X-Men Children of the Atom on the Sega Saturn, which was a pretty good representation of this game. But to me, this is really, it's more about the cabinet experience, you know, the nostalgia of playing an arcade cabinet. I think it's a great display piece, like for my office here. You know, I think it looks great in here with my other, you know, action figures and stuff. So it's really more, it's not just the game itself. I mean, I wouldn't recommend getting one unless it's a game that you find fun. But I also think it's more about just like the arcade machine itself as opposed to the game with these things. Alright, he kicked my butt. So I'm going to exit out of here. Once again, you hit the player 1 button for 5 seconds. And takes you out. And we'll go into the third game, The Punisher. Now this is a side scroller, again, very similar to like a Final Fight game. You either play as Punisher or Nick Fury. So we'll go on and select, hit the blue button, then player 1 button. Once again, takes you to a screen that cycles through, gets high scores. None of these are my scores. And then this one, it'll start off giving you a little story about what's going on. New York, a jungle of steel and concrete where predators of all kinds mercilessly prey on all. Then it walks you through the origins of Frank Castle, his family getting shot in Central Park. Pretty brutal, you know? On that day, Frank Castle died, and I was born to avenge them and all others like them. I am the Punisher. Now, during this time, the Punisher had some notoriety because he did have the Dolph Lundgren movie, and you know, he was a pretty popular comic at the time. So this is the demo, shows you how the game plays. Again, your typical side-scroller type game. But this one definitely, as I was mentioning before, has some pretty unique characters like Bushwhacker and the Reavers are in this game. you know, not necessarily bad guys that you think of for the Punisher, but there's Nick Fury with a cigar. Nothing PC about this game. Alright, so let's start the game. Select the Punisher. With this one, you just use the two top buttons, the red and the blue. You don't use the other buttons with this game. And there's not a way, you can't like, you know, like on a console where you can like customize the buttons to your liking. Yeah, there's none of that. To pick stuff up, you hit the blue button, you walk over to it and you hit the blue button. Pick people up, throw them, pick up weapons. You get a little story as you go along. Now, I was playing, me and my wife were playing this yesterday. Now, one thing to note, because it is not the full size of a regular arcade machine, when you're playing two players, it's definitely doable, but you do have to stand off a little to the side, a little bit more than what you would with a traditional cabinet if you've got two people playing, just because, again, it's not as wide as a regular arcade machine. Not a big deal. I had no problem playing two-player. I am wondering, you know, how the Turtle game with 4 players would be. They did a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game, which just came out along with this one, which allows you to have 4 people at a time. I haven't looked at any reviews for that one. I was really tempted to get that game. I don't have a lot of room for these things, and this was the one I wanted for my office, so I went with this one. Now, if they ever do the X-Men side scroller or the Avengers, Captain America and the Avengers side scroller in a cabinet, I would probably almost definitely pick that up, especially if they gave us both games in one cabinet. That's what I was really kind of hoping for when they announced they were going to be doing Marvel games, is that those were the games we're going to get. Not that these are bad games or anything, but I love that X-Men side-scroller, and the Captain America and the Avengers one was pretty cool too. Now with this one, if you get killed, so, you know, in the arcade you would have to put another quarter in to continue your game. With this, all you gotta do is just hit the player 1 button and you can keep playing. So even if you die, you know, you can basically still get through this. It doesn't make it start over every time you go through all your lives and everything, which is in some ways good and I guess some ways bad. So I could hit the player 1 button and continue on from where I just was if I wanted to. And of course I don't have to spend any actual quarters. Okay, so that's it. You know, I'm pretty happy with this purchase. I think the gameplay is very authentic. The controllers seem to be very well made. I'm not worried about them breaking. The machine itself is very sturdy, and it was very easy to put together. Now, it does cost $300, $350 if you get the riser, $380 if you get the special Marvel riser. So, but, you know, honestly, I don't think that's terribly expensive, you know, for something like this. And to me, it's more than just the games themselves because, you know, like I said, you can get these games much cheaper than that. But, you know, having a cabinet like this with the wonderful artwork on it and everything, you know, I think this makes a great display piece in my office, just like my action figures and stuff, which is what kind of really drew me to this. Is why I decided to get it. All right, well, that's it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything I talked about today. Let me know in the comment section below. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification so you're alerted every time I upload a new video. And of course, you can also follow me on my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts. I have links to those in the video description as well. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you later.